if you were an idealist, concerned citizen of humanity, and with your experience and knowledge of science, the drug discovery, and the business of developing medicine, do you think that the system that we currently have is, flawed as it is the best that is possible? Or do you actually think there could be a fundamentally better way of discovering, developing life-saving medicine and bring it to the people who actually need it?
Absolutely, the system we have is not optimal. And by the way, I say that as a concerned citizen of humanity, as you put it. So it's not hypothetical. The system is not optimal. I think it's very important to be clear that the reason the system is not optimal is not because people are not trying. And in today's environment, where there is so much suspicion that that doctors and healthcare providers and insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies and that everybody is sort of trying to fleece the system or is just not paying attention to doing the right thing, I think it's very important to emphasize that at the individual level, most of the people in these enterprises are really genuinely trying to do the right thing. Very few people get into this business if they don't have some concern for human welfare, for patient care, however you want to define it.
Right.
In my view, the problem is that the way our healthcare enterprise is structured, and that includes R&D, all the way from R&D to bedside care,
right,
provides the wrong incentives for people. Right? The structures do not provide the optimal incentives. I think one very obvious example of that is that our insurance system does not give patients any incentive to research or understand the care that they're being given, and it doesn't give patients any incentive to be careful with their dollars, because it's not their dollars. They don't perceive it as their money when you have third-party insurance. So we've seen attempts to patch that system by putting in things like co-pays and offloading some of the risk onto the patients. Unfortunately, in many cases, we're offloading risk onto people who really can't afford it.
Right.
Right? So every patch has unwanted consequences in another way. It almost suggests that if we could, we would want to go back to the drawing board and just start all over. In the world that I'm most familiar with, which is discovery and development of new drugs, the incentives have become wrong for a different reason. The drug discovery and development process is so expensive. By some estimates, it costs between $800 million and $1 billion
right,
from discovery to market launch to bring a new drug to the market, for example, for cancer or for cardiovascular disease and so on. That process can take 12 to 15 years. It used to be that there was a chain of participants in that process, from the academic scientists all the way through to the big pharmaceutical companies that could finance late-stage clinical trials, and that along the way there were a series of participants. And where venture-backed companies fit in is that we were able to take some of the scientific discoveries and do the work of transforming those or translating them into feasible products. And then we would find other ways to finance that, either through individual project financing or later on through partnerships with larger companies to finance the more expensive parts of the development. The problem is that for almost a decade now, we have not been getting rewarded for that risk. So we invest in the early stage development, and we can take those potential products up to a certain level of development, but the next players in the chain are facing such an enormous level of risk themselves, they're not willing to pay us a reasonable valuation, or at least a valuation that gives us back our investment with some profit. The result is that the venture capital industry has largely abandoned investing in early stage drug discovery and development. In the meantime, in real dollar terms, the national research budget for drug discovery and development for life sciences has been going down. So the public sector is not financing these efforts to the extent that they need to be financed. The private sector has largely pulled out. So, in our business, we call this the valley of death. Right? This is the 2 or 3 year gap in which no matter what you do and how much you accomplish, no one is going to pay you for it.
Nobody is picking up the baton
to
continue the relay.
That's right. And so in that sense, the incentives, these are not incentives imposed by anybody's sort of legislative act or something, but the market has somehow gotten out of whack, so that our incentives are no longer such as to induce us to invest in that kind of research and development. So I think the one obvious answer is that we need to rethink our philosophy about public funding of this kind of research and development. My own opinion is that we should increase public investment in that. There are, of course, people in the business community who, for philosophical reasons or political reasons, believe in the mantra of government out.
Right.
It's just unrealistic in this enterprise. And one reason is that it's unrealistic is because this is not actually a truly market business. At the other end, after we've done all this R&D, at the other end, it's still a regulated business. You have to get through the FDA to bring a drug to market. And I'm not in favor of abolishing the FDA. As painful as it is for many people in our industry to deal with the FDA, because it can be tremendously frustrating, it's also clear that our industry wouldn't exist as it is, and the quality of the medicines that are on the market would not be what they are if it were not for essentially this social contract that we've made with ourselves, that we're going to regulate this industry to ensure that at the very least drugs are pretty safe. Probably could be better, but they're pretty safe. They're certainly safer than they were before the FDA was created. And there are a lot of effective drugs that have changed people's lives. But it is a regulated industry. So that level of regulation essentially functions as a gigantic tax on our industry. If some of that tax doesn't circle back to the beginning to feed the pipeline, we're going to starve to death. That's just the reality.
Well, that's apparently a passionate subject for many that are involved. That kind of picture, whether we will see it one day, and if so, when. Obviously we don't know, but meanwhile we try our best. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And hopefully we'll have another opportunity in the future.
Okay.